Okay, guys, welcome back. And now today we're going to talk about the functionalist perspective. Now, the functionalist perspective is one of the perspectives within sociology, and we'll talk about it right now. So functionalism is, first of all, a macro-sociological perspective. It looks at society from the top down. So, for example, in this model, we see society at the top. Society is made up of a set of institutions. Each institution performs a different function for society. And then inside the institutions, there are specific roles or people doing things. Each role performs a specific task for the institution, which then performs a specific function for society. So this is like an organism, an organic whole, and it's a living, breathing thing in a sort of way, because every part of it has to fit together and they have to change together. So everything functions together. Now, one of the earliest people to bring this concept to sociology was an English biologist, actually, named Herbert Spencer. So he applied his own theory of biological evolution to social theory. Essentially, he saw society as like an animal, like a species that's evolving, changing over time. And within this process of change, constantly some things are being lost and new things are being gained. So Spencer thought evolution happened through a process of complexity, that things become more complicated over time. Now, Spencer read the work of Charles Darwin, and he used the term survival of the fittest to explain this process. So as new elements of society emerge, if they benefit society, they will survive and grow. Things that don't benefit society will die out, essentially, right? So basically, this was then taken by people who called it social Darwinism, that we shouldn't feel sorry for the poor, or at least we shouldn't try to help them because maybe they should just die out, or maybe they're just inferior. So this idea, which has later been discredited, you'll be happy to know, led to a lot of misconceptions in early sociology. But still, the functionalist part was taken out. So look at the functionalism. For example, we take a cat as an idea of a creature, right? The cat has many different parts. What do these parts do? You've got eyes. Well, what's the function of an eye? Well, in this case, to see a mouse, right? So the eyes see a mouse. And then he's got a mouth, right? So the mouth is going to eat the mouse, right? So the eyes and the mouth have a relationship. They work together somehow. And then there's the stomach, right? That's going to digest the mouse. And then you've got, you got a pooper. You got to get rid of waste, right? So any society, if you leave trash or garbage around, it's going to create all kinds of problems. So just like the same thing, right? So these things all work together. We could all call them part of the digestive system of an animal, is analogous to the economy of a society. So in the economy, the eyes are your information seekers, your mouth is your processing, your factories, your stomach is your distribution facilities, etc., etc. And then, of course, you have other systems, the brain that helps organize everything, coordinates everything, makes sure everything works together. You've got your claws that catches the mouse or helps you defend yourself. So each part of the animal, or in society, each institution plays a vital part in the whole. Now, of course, some parts may be more vital than others, right? So maybe you could get rid of one claw, you would still be able to survive with another. But you couldn't get rid of the brain because then the whole body would just flop down and it would die. Another thing is, from the standpoint of the sociologist, is to say, what is our role? Well, functionalism helps us understand this is how society should work. So if society is not working, we can, say what's wrong with it. So just like a vet, if you bring your dog or cat to the vet, he'll say, well, his eyes are not working. That's why he can't catch any mice, right? Let's fix his eyes, right? So when you understand how things are supposed to work together, you can then solve problems that come up. That's the basic idea. Now, Emile Durkheim is credited as the first official sociologist. He was French, as we talked about before, and he took this idea of Spencer, but he turned it around a little bit. Instead of talking about survival of the fittest, he used Darwin's concept of natural selection. And there is a difference we'll talk about in a second. Right? In other words, Durkheim argued that in society, we don't necessarily have to reject people or get rid of them, but people find new places, new roles. So unlike the cells of an animal, I mean, if you've got cells in your hand, you can't just tell them to, whoop, I need you in the leg now. Hey, wouldn't that be great if you could tell your fat cells to go somewhere else? Anyway, you can't do that with the body, but in society you can. So if the hand is no use, the individuals who used to work in those roles, they can become reassigned, right? So in this process, what's really important, Durkheim felt, was the concept of social solidarity. What's really important was that people felt included and would be included. Right? Now, the idea of equality is important in Durkheim, but equality takes second place to social solidarity. Without social solidarity, nothing else matters. And so in his development or conceptualization of how or why society develops, he argues that this is a process in which social solidarity is itself transforming from what he calls mechanic to organic. And we'll talk about that much more later on. But I just wanted to point out this fitter versus selection issue, because it's a very big misconception people have about Darwin's theory. So if I asked you, for example, is an elephant fitter than a mouse? Right? So how would you even go about answering that question? Well, the elephant's bigger. He can squish the mouse. Right? So obviously in a direct fight, the mouse is not going to do too well. But the mouse is very small. It can run around. It can hide. It can jump up on top of the elephant's head and maybe do a dance. Right? Does that make it fitter? So you see, when you say fitter, it doesn't make any sense, does it? If I ask you, is a jacket fitter than a t-shirt? You say, well, it depends, right? What does it depend on? Right? Oh, okay, Sherry, very good point. You select your clothes according to your needs or the weather, right? If it's hot, you wear a t-shirt. If it's cold, you're going to wear a jacket. So this is what we mean by selection, right? Now, when we say nature selects, we're not saying nature's making a choice in a conscious way, but rather nature is selecting things so that they do fit in a particular area. So, for example, elephants got big because it was useful for them to be big. They could reach the trees, they could protect themselves against other elephants, lions and tigers, right? So being big was useful for them. Mice became selected for being small, right? So instead of seeing selection as survival of the fittest, we see selection as a process by which your previous abilities push you in a certain direction, right? And then you're going to maximize those things. So if you're small, you'll get smaller. If you're big, you're going to get bigger, right? If you're good at math as a child, you will enjoy studying math, and you will become very good at math, right? As opposed to a nincompoop like me, I'm not good at math, so I get frustrated. I'm not going to study it. I won't get good at math. I'm not going to select for math. So on the other hand, if I'm good at writing English, I get positive feedback. Therefore, I'm going to become an English writer. All right. So by the same token, instead of now competing, the elephant and the mouse are not competing. They're in different spheres of the same ecosystem. Now they are complementing each other. They're helping each other. The elephant poops, and in the poop, the mice will find food, forage, nesting materials, all kinds of stuff. Right? It may seem rather disgusting, but c'est la vie. Right? On the other hand, maybe the elephant has an itch because there's a bug behind its ear. The mice might come up and eat the bug. I don't know. Right? But you get the idea. The point is, selection, and the same process in society, by the same kind of natural forces, people are going to be selected for different things. Again, ideally based upon their abilities. So if you're forced to be a mathematician, you're probably not going to be a good one. But if you have a natural inclination and you're going to develop that over time because you enjoy it, you get good feedback from it, you're going to become a great mathematician. Right? Now, that may not be as important as being, let's say, President of the United States. But the point is, all roles are important. Maybe some are more important than others, but what's really important is that we feel good within our role. So if I'm a good mathematician and somebody says, no, you should be a surgeon because a surgeon earns more, but I'm not going to be myself as a surgeon. I won't enjoy it. On the other hand, I may enjoy math. Now, an American sociologist who brought this home or developed this further in the United States was called Talcott Parsons. Right? He was very famous for his structural functionalist model of society. He kind of formalized this and brought Durkheim into modern American sociology. Now, a lot of Talcott Parsons' early life was formed during World War II. He saw the rise of the Nazis. He also saw the rise of communism, on the other hand. And Talcott Parsons felt that these were both threats to proper social functioning. He believed that they tried to control too much of society, and the society should be able to develop on its own to a certain extent. Right? So he developed this thing called the social theory of action. So basically the idea is we as individuals are going to act according to our roles and our institutions. So this is the kind of the simplified model he came up with. It's called the Agile Model. Agile stands for A, adaptation. Adaptation is mostly in the economic sphere. So adaptation means adapting the environment to us or adapting us to the environment. Either way, it doesn't really matter much if you consider the theory of relativity. So for example, humans exist within a world in which we are constantly adapting culturally to the environment around us and also adapting the environment around us to ourselves, to our needs. Right? Now, G, goal attainment. Now, there's some relationship here, of course, because in the process of adaptation, sometimes you will have to have political leadership. So, for example, in ancient Assyria or ancient Sumer, the leaders organized the canal systems that allowed irrigation to happen on a massive scale that grew the food. Right? So this is part of the political process or the political structure, and this was also part of adaptation helping the economy. So that society would never have existed unless you had that structure. Right? So by the same token today, what does politics do? It helps to create ideas of how to move society in particular directions. Right? So in the 1950s, Eisenhower came up with the project for the U.S. interstate freeway program, right? A free network of roads that would crisscross the country and bring every part of America together. You know, before that it took weeks or months to get from New York to Los Angeles. There was no single system of roads. Every road was subject to the local county or state officials. But Eisenhower put this in practice so that now you can drive on basically one highway or freeway all the way from New York to Los Angeles with barely a stop for a burger or fries along the way, and maybe stay in some seedy motel. Now, on the other hand, another part of what we often think of the state is the legal system. So in the legal system, you have two elements. One is penal, punishing people for doing the wrong thing, and the other is managing commercial relations, contracts, what we call civil law. So this is what he calls integration, the integration of I. Integration means you're helping the thing stay together. If people start fighting, if there were no civil courts and you get cheated on a contract, what are you going to do? The only thing you can do is go out and shoot it out with the guy, right? There's enough of that already, apparently, in America. But the point is, normally you go to a civil court and you get it done civilly, right? And then everything's, you can go back to business, right? So that's integration. It keeps society working together. And then L stands for latent. Now here, Parsons means something that's below the surface that keeps things also together. Pattern maintenance, values, dealing with tensions, concerns on an individual and community level. And this is the role of education, religion, and the family, right? So the family is seen as a haven where you go and you feel better. You have church tells you that you're doing the right thing, you're going to go to heaven, everything's fine. Education teaches you how to get along with other people. So in other words, it keeps things going. Now, a general criticism of Parsons' theory and to some extent of functionalism as a whole is that it creates this very nice model, and it's helpful sometimes, obviously, to think of society as an organism of different parts of society feeding into each other and cooperating together, right? But notice that it tends to emphasize processes of conformity and stability. So if somebody is always complaining or saying, oh, I don't have enough of this, or I want more of that, those people tend to be, it would say, these people are outliers. They're not the real process. The real process are the people who conform and go along, right? It also is somewhat difficult to explain change. Now, it explains change by saying, well, we're adapting to the environment. Well, if the environment changes, fine. Okay, we adapt to it. We change along with the environment, right? But most change does not come from the environment. 99% of social change comes from inside society. It comes from technological change. It comes from political change. It comes even from changes in values and norms, right? Changes within religion, changes within the family. So it doesn't come to grips with this kind of change very well. And furthermore, there's no way of knowing whether a change is good or bad. So if things change, the immediate implication is, oh, this is terrible. Society is fine the way it is. Why is it changing? Well, maybe it's fine for you, but not fine for other people. Maybe they want to change. Another very prominent sociologist or functionalist was called Robert Merton. Merton and Talcott Parsons obviously worked together. Now, Merton distinguished between three different types of function. And again, these are useful concepts, but also have some drawbacks. So the manifest function, when manifest, that means something stated. So the manifest function are the stated goals of an institution. But every institution also has hidden goals. Sometimes those are the real goals. Right? And then also, he said, there may be dysfunctions. And this is ways in which an institution may be doing something wrong. So let's have an example like the rain dance. Okay, this is a popular example used for this. Right? So many societies have or used to have some form of rain dance, particularly in areas where they'd have long periods without rain. Right? And the idea of the rain dance is you dance around and do certain things, and this is supposed to make the rain come down. Right? Now, that's what we call the manifest function. If you ask people, why are you dancing around? They would be like, we're bringing the rain, hey, we're doing the rain dance, we're making the rain come. Sorry about that. All right. Well, now scientifically, you'd say, well, that's balderdash. The gods aren't going to make rain just because you dance around like that, right? But you might say, well, maybe there are other reasons why they're doing this, right? So maybe it gives them hope. Maybe it gives them an opportunity to meet other people, to socialize, right? To have alliances between different tribes, to make peace agreements or make marriages, right? So the point is, the real reason may be these other things that people don't say, but are the real important reasons. They help hold society together. Right? Now, there could also be dysfunction. So, for example, maybe a society is so stubborn and they believe in the rain dance so much, they refuse to move. They just keep dancing and dancing, and the rains never come, and they all die, right? So, again, you can have a dysfunction. Like any institution sometimes becomes dysfunctional over time. Like it used to serve a purpose, but nowadays it doesn't serve a purpose. Now, again, I mean, think about modern society. What about education, right? Now, the manifest function of education is to teach children necessary skills so they can survive in society. But there may be latent functions also, babysitting, making sure children are taken care of so their parents could work, maybe indoctrinate children into social norms and authority structures so they're ready to participate in the workforce. Right? You could also maybe say there are dysfunctions. Maybe it gives children too much time, so they become criminals sometimes, or they turn to social movements. They want to change the world. Now, again, this is a great idea. It can help us to think about things. We can say, well, this is a manifest function, this is a latent function, this is a dysfunction, but how do we know which one is dysfunctional and which one is latent? So very often this is one of the core criticisms of functionalism, is it kind of comes down to what you think is good or bad, right? So if you think a religion is good because it brings people together and it makes them think about something more than themselves, makes them think about being good and being charitable and having moral beliefs, all right, you would say these are the latent functions of religion. It's a good thing. Other people might say, no, religion is bad because it makes people stubborn, it makes people ethnocentric, they want to go out and kill other people of other religions or at least compete with them. Which one is correct? Right? This is one of the weaknesses of functionalism. The point is that you have to realize there may be two sides to every story. Right? So if you can test or find ways of testing whether certain things are functional or dysfunctional, it's not a problem. So thank you very much for joining me for this lecture on functionalism, and I hope to see you in a next lecture. Make sure you check the companion for additional assignments and review before you take the quiz. All right, bye.